Critical pedagogy encompasses all the areas of study that aim to redress bias and have informed ways of teaching and knowing in our society ever since the first public school opened. The two great movements for social justice in our nation that both changed all aspects of our culture and created small but powerful revolutions in education are the civil rights and feminist movements. After the militant push for racial inequality led to desegregation and the changing of laws, Black Power activists were one of the first groups in this nation to call attention to all the myriad ways education was structured to reinforce white supremacy, teaching white children ideologies of dominance and black children ideologies of subordination. For example, they ridiculed school children being taught that Columbus discovered America, and they imposed the knowledge that African explorers had traveled to this soil before Europeans. Few people in our nation of the race want to remember the way in which Black Power activists worked in public schools, both to see that children who were hungry would be fed and to offer them what Malcolm X called new ways of seeing themselves and the world. Concurrently, feminist challenges to patriarchy, its committed insistence on the primary primacy of male thinkers in their works was an insurrection that created major changes. When a critique of race and class was added to that of gender, every bias was interrogated to progressive teachers and students. This was truly a revolution, making it possible for many of us to enter areas of study that were previously seen as arenas available solely to privileged white males. Many of us attend colleges and universities that would not have enrolled us had there not been both movements for equality aimed at redressing race, sex, and class bias, and movement for reparations and reconstruction. It was as though the use of the word affirmative deemed that a big yes was being bestowed on the unprivileged by the privileged. Hence is reinscribed the very structure of paternalistic domination that is meant to redress that aside. It did make it possible for many people from exploited, oppressed, and or disenfranchised classes to seek higher education, just as historical movement where imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy was being questioned on an international front and here at home. Drawing from the radicalism of militant freedom fighters from Africa, South America, China, and all over the world, radicalized Americans, especially those from disenfranchised groups, were learning a new language with which to articulate our place in the United States. Albert Memmi explored the relationships between colonizer and colonized, and Frantz Fanon looked toward decolonization. Walter Rodin showed us how Europe underdeveloped Africa. Leopold. For many first generations who attend college, Black people of color, the seeds planted that led us to reject a colonizing mentality were sowed with us prior to entertaining institutions, because we could not have been ready to receive the gifts of affirmative actions had we not already learned to resist passive acceptance of the pressure of dominator values and perspectives on our identity. Usually we learned a measure of resistance to dominant culture within our homes. That spirit served us well in educational institutions where we faced an onslaught of biased dominator thinking. Without decolonizing mentality, smart students from disenfranchised backgrounds often find it difficult to succeed in the educational institutions of dominator culture. This holds true even for those students who have embraced the values of dominant culture. In fact, those students may have the least prepared for their barriers and face because they have so convinced themselves that they are different from the other members of their group. A major flaw in all of our nation's powerful movements for social justice has been our nation's powerful movement for social justice has been and remains the assumption that liberation will take place in one fell swoop. That has been detrimental to progress simply because when certain gains in the direction of quality we achieve, the struggle stopped. And of course, that is dangerous when we are attempting to construct subcultures of self-determination within the framework of dominator culture. We would all have fared better in our struggles to end racism, sexism, and class exploitation if we had learned that liberation is an ongoing process. We are bombarded daily by colonizing mentality, one that only shapes consequences and actions, but also provides material rewards for submission and acquaintances that far exceeded any material gains for resistance. So we must be constantly engaging new ways of thinking and being. We must be critically vigilant. This is no easy task when most people spend most of their days working with dominator culture. Since there has not been radical transformation of education of its roots, education as practice of freedom is still a pedagogy acceptance only by individuals who elect to concentrate their efforts in this direction. We deliberately choose to teach in ways that further the interests of democracy, of justice, since the radical interventions in education that have helped end many discriminatory practices, thereby creating diverse contexts for unbiased learning, have been severely attacked by dominator culture. Their impact is diminished. Concurrently, many radical thinkers often speak radical theory and then engage in conventional practice sanctioned by dominator culture, certainly rewards receiving by the dominant educational hierarchy diminish efforts to resist and transform education understanding. That liberation is an ongoing process. We must pursue all opportunities to decolonize our minds and the minds of our students. Despite several setbacks, there have been and will continue to be constructive radical shifts in the way we teach and learn as minds stayed on freedom, teach, transgress, and transform.